SEA today.
Alright, welcome back everyone to A's Online Virtual Classroom. I am Andre, bringing you SEA today, presented by A's Online Tutoring Services, exam success at your fingertips. So we're getting closer and closer and closer. We're almost halfway there as we continue to count down 100 days to SEA 2021. We only have 52 more days left until that big day, so make sure and hit the subscribe button because we have a lot of preparation videos coming your way to ensure that you are ready for SEA 2021. Alright, so welcome to the end of week 7. And if you haven't seen our previous videos, check out our playlist at the top in the corner, and that will take you straight to our playlist of SEA Today videos where we've been at this for the past 7 weeks. And before we get into week 8 and start looking at some English language arts, today let's take a look at creative writing. And of course, you know, we're gonna go to our well-known, our famous story that was written by our own subscribers called The Big Fight. So The Big Fight was written by 3 of our subscribers, and it was a very well written story. So over the past few weeks, we've looked at the content in this story. We've also looked at how they used a lot of their descriptions, their dialogue, their punctuations. We analyzed how they form their paragraphs, and we looked at the entire layout and flow of the story. So today we're going to look at what it takes to actually plan your story, because the story will become a lot easier, especially under exam conditions, in order for you to be able to write the story effectively and in time, because of course you have only 50 minutes to write an entire 5 paragraphs. All right, so today we're going to look at planning your story. So we're going to go to the smartboard. If you want to check out the full story for The Big Fight, you can look at one of our previous videos. I'm going to link it to the top there again, and you'll be able to read the entire story as it coming up on the screen on the side. Alright, so let's go to the board now, and we just want to make sure we have our timer running to keep track of what we're doing, and we're going to go through some of the main things you can do to plan your story in a quick, effective way. Alright, so let's get it. Going to go to the smartboard, and we're looking at creative writing. Plan your story. So what do you do before you start writing your story? Just jot down some main points to guide you. All right, so it's always good to have a plan before you get into the in-depth into your story, because as you are writing, ideas may unfold in your mind and that might throw you off. So to keep you focused on one main idea or a few main things that you must include in your story, you should have a plan. And the more you practice writing your plan, is the easier it will become to do it in the exam. So please take the time and practice your plans. So just a few things we want to look at in our story planner. I mean, we could have a lot more in our planner, but we have to be aware of the time that we have. All right, so in our story planner, I think it's important that we highlight who the characters are. Right? I think it's also important that we take a look at the setting. We take note of what the setting is, and we're going to look at the planner for The Big Fight in a short while. So you should be able to relate it, because you have the story And now we're going to look at the plan. So we're going to see how the setting comes into play into all of that. So we want to see the characters, we want to see the setting. You also want to note how you want to start your story, your beginning. What is going to come out in the beginning of the story. If you start off right, there's a good chance you're going to finish off right as well. And we looked at how to write a paragraph 1 in our previous creative writing videos, so be sure to check them out. We also want to take note of what the rising action is. And the rising action is that whatever is happening in the story before the climax. And the climax is the highest point, the most exciting point of the story, the peak of the story. And so you want to know what's happening before that. And you also want to highlight the climax, of course. And last, you want to resolve the entire story with an ending. You bring it to a close with a nice resolution. So these are the 6 main things I think we should have in our planner. Memorize them and go into your creative writing exam with this on your mind. And to give you a little bit more, we want to say that you should have pre-planned ideas for characters' names and descriptions. So we're doing expository writing. So it's not just about naming these characters, but you must describe your characters. Describe how they look, describe how they talk, describe how they walk, describe how they dress. Give descriptions to the characters. It will bring the characters to more life in the story. When it comes to the climax, you use the question that they're asking you in the exam as your guide to help you write your climax. So the prompt for the big fight was about a big fight. So our climax, as you will see shortly, would be when the fight actually started to take place. And most important, this is creative writing we're doing. Seen it on top there? We're doing creative writing. So make sure and be creative and write a story that you enjoy. If you not enjoy the story, the person who writing the story most likely or probably will not enjoy it either. So make sure and enjoy what you're writing, and your story should be okay. Alright, so let's take a look at the story planner for the big fight and how we could apply all of these things into an actual story that you may have to write. So we have all the main parts throughout. We have the characters. First of all, in the big fight, we had 4 characters. Now, I recommend to all my students that you should at least try and have 3. You should at least have 3 characters to make the story kind of as wide as possible. If you only have 1 or 2 people, you're limiting the story to what could happen. With more characters, more things could happen. You can talk about them more in the story. You can describe them. So make sure and have at least 3 characters. We had Noah, James, Leah, and Mrs. Roberts. Alright. Next, we want to take note of the setting. Now, the setting is the place in which the story is unfolding, what is happening around you or around the characters, or where the characters are situated. So for the setting for the big fight, it was a crowded school cafeteria, and if you go back to the story, you'll be able to see that they spoke about a food-filled table. That was one of the literary devices they used, and it was well written to describe that the cafeteria was crowded. Alright, and then the fight eventually moved away from that area and went into the back of the school. So for my planner, I'm taking note of the crowded school cafeteria and the back of the school. So while I'm writing, I have a good idea of how this thing is actually pictured, right? And then we're looking at the beginning. So in the beginning of our story, we saw that Noah was in the cafeteria having lunch, and And all of a sudden his sister came to him to complain about a bully. She's like, if I remember it properly, she's like, Noah, can you help me? Somebody is picking on me. And we use dialogue to say that, and that was all in the first paragraph. So the beginning is always good to take note of before you start to write, because I've seen students who have difficulty with starting a story, and it could take a little while if you don't have a plan written out. All right, so please make sure and take note of your beginning. And then we're moving down to the rising action. So the rising action, as I said, is what is taking place in the story before the most exciting point, before the climax. So here, for our rising action, we have Leah took Noah to see who the bully was, and when he saw it was James, he got furious. So in the story, if I could if my recollection is sharp enough, Leah literally took him to the doorway and said, look, that is the bully. And in the story, we went on to say that Noah, who's the main character, recognized that it was James, who was a bully that he didn't really like from ever since, and he started to describe his emotions that was building up before the exciting part. So it literally, the rising action is a build up before the explosion, before the peak of the story. And as we get to the climax now, as I said in the planner before, we should use the prompt or the question in the story to help us write our climax. Because if you ignore the prompt, then you might miss out on some key things. So make sure and take note of the prompt or the question that they gave. And for our climax, we had Noah grabbing James and the fight started. He told him, we're going to settle this here and now. And then he started to fight. So that's the climax. That was in paragraph 3. If I remember, yes, paragraph 3. And throughout paragraph 3, they describe the climax, they describe the different things that was happening in the fight, what was going on, who was beating who, how the fight ended up outside, and all of those things was being spoken about in paragraph 3, which would have been our climax. So put your climax in the middle of the story, and then gradually come down to the resolution. And in our resolution, the fight got to the back of the school, and then Mrs. Roberts came, who was the teacher, parted it, and both students got suspended. That was the resolution of the story. They went into even more details to describe parents being called in and things like that. But when you are planning your story, try and do it in just a few minutes. So before you go into the exam, have some names that you want to use for your characters. The climax is going to come from your prompt, and the setting, the beginning, all of these other parts here, the setting, the beginning, the rising action, and the resolution, that is going to come from your creative side. You have to be creative with it. Try and use your descriptions as much as you can, and challenge yourself with some similes, some metaphors, and some other literary devices to help bring out your setting, to help bring out your beginning, to help highlight and to make the rising action as exciting as it can be, and to resolve this story in a nice way. All right, so that's our plan. Take note of all of these main headings: characters, setting, beginning, rising action, climax, and resolution, and ensure that you memorize them. When you go into the exam, you have to be able to do this in less than 5 minutes. Alright, so you're basically writing one sentence for everything other than the characters, and the setting isn't really a full sentence, but the majority of everything here, all of it is just one sentence. So You should try and do it as quickly as you can, and then get into your story using this as your guide, and take about 30 minutes to write your story, 30 to 35 minutes, leaving you with some time still in the end to check over. So timing is always important, and ensure that you, as I said, ensure that you be creative and write a story that you enjoy. Alright, so that is going to bring us to the end of our creative writing video for today. Be sure to check out the big fight on our channel, Get Your Education. We have it, I'll link it in the video. Be sure to check it out and like the video once you do. And I just want to thank you now for joining me. If you stuck out through this entire video, be sure to hit subscribe and make sure that you check out our previous content. Alright, so as we continue to count down to SEA 2021, we know we only have 52 more days. So keep the work going, keep up the hard work, ensure that you continue to prepare, because SEA preparation today is going to make your life a lot more comfortable, and you'll face the exam with a lot more confidence on that big day. Alright, so thanks for joining me again, and I will see you tomorrow.
SEA Today.